say welcome to Yoko, and I'm going to go ahead and spotlight her. So, hi, Yoko. Thank you so much for coming. Yes.
Yay.
How are you this morning?
I'm pretty good. I'm, just waking up. I'm trying to figure out how to unspotlight myself. I want to pin someone else because I don't want to look at myself, but I don't know how to pin you. Oh, maybe speaker view? No, that pins me. I guess I just have to look at myself. That's fine.
Yeah, here, I'll add mine in so at least you can.
I can help you with that.
What did you say, sweetheart?
I can help her with that if she
wants. I just pinned Ms. Frost. So I think that this is better because that way I can look at her and be like, hi, you're a person. I'm not just talking to myself. It worked. It's good to be here. How is everybody?
Oh, I got a private message saying how pretty you are.
Aww. That's so nice. I just did my hair. It's very bright. It's brighter than I thought it would be because I didn't have Miss Frost to help me. She helped me with my hair last time, but this time I did it myself. So it's super bright at the roots and dark at the ends. Your hair looks good too.
Thank you. Megan says she likes your hair.
Aw. Oh, I see that. Thank you. I put the chat up so I can see it now. So did you all just watch the video again?
We did, yeah. I got another private message that from someone saying they like your hair and also your humor.
Aw, thanks.
So we just watched the video again. I was talking to the kids. They said they picked up on some more of the details the second time around. So I'm really glad that we got a chance to watch it again. And I would love to go ahead and start asking Yoko some questions if everyone is paying attention. So I wanted to start by just asking, and then I'm going to give the kids a chance to ask you some questions. And this is a great group. This is my class that's some real artists are in this class.
Cool.
They do some really, really great work, really wonderful drawings. That's awesome. Sometimes, as I'm sure you know, Yoko, people who draw a lot don't always talk a lot, but they're very interested.
Yeah, I feel that way too. Actually, whenever I do something especially an interview like this, I get really oh gosh, I have to talk in front of people and it's hard. And I get kind of nervous right before, but now that I'm here, I'm fine. I just it's scary to have to know that people are listening live, So I have that introvert artist tendency for sure.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate you being here and overcoming that introvert tendency.
I appreciate being here. It's nice to wake up early for me. I usually wake up a little bit later, and it's nice to I sat in this morning sun. It was really nice where I am. It's really sunny right now.
Lovely.
Yeah. Yay. So I don't know. Should we just start with the questions or?
Yeah. If you feel ready,
I think so. I have I wrote down some answers, but I also, because I was trying to think about my relationship to my family and my heritage, but I also want to try to answer just from my mind and not from my written answers, because sometimes that makes me more nervous to be did I say everything that I wrote down? So let's just try this. I feel pretty comfortable.
Great. So I'd love to start by just asking you, what made you decide to make this film?
Well, my family has been planning this trip to Japan, like we talked about in the movie. And we had been actually having Zoom meetings about it way before the pandemic, and the plan was to go last November. And we had just been talking about it, and also I became aware that not everybody knew that much about the history of how the great-grandparents or how our great-grandparents came here, because of different branches of the family have been not everyone has been super close. People have drifted away for various reasons, one of my grandparents' brothers was actually given to an orphanage when he was a little kid because he didn't get along with the father, and it was very like traumatic, and so like that branch of the family drifted apart. So like the son, the person who Walter, he was towards the end, he's actually the grandson of the brother of my grandfather who was given away or put up for adoption when he was a kid. So he didn't know anything about the story, which isn't clear in the documentary because I had to shorten it, but yeah, he was like pretty surprised about the story. And then like, I mean, people like me, like I knew about the story, but I didn't really get how crazy it was until I like interviewed my cousin who had been reading the family history documents written by Danny Sato's grandmother, who she was also in the documentary. So yeah, just like realized how intense this story was and was like, wow, this is really cool. I want to tell this story somehow. And then also I was in a video editing class and the assignment was to make a documentary. And it was like, the pandemic had just started. So they were like, well, you could try to interview people, but you might have to do it over Zoom. And I was like, well, I Zoom every, few weeks with my family anyway. And like, I kind of want to just get an idea of like all their different perspectives on like what the story is and like try to like edit it together to make a story that like we can all agree is true.
That's awesome. That's amazing. I love that.
Yay.
Yeah. So one thing that comes up in this video and something that's been coming up for us as a class and as a school, and as a school in Chinatown and as a school that has a large population of Asian students is the violence that we've seen in this country against Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, over the last year as people are sort of being scapegoated for COVID. And I just wanted to see, how that's affected you or what you would like to say to young people about that.
What would I that's a big question. I mean, for me, I'm really lucky. I have not been scapegoated by anybody. I mean, during COVID times, I mean, when I was a kid, like I'm sure people said racist things to me at times and I just didn't know, or like I was just, kids say mean things to each other sometimes. So like, but as an adult, like I'm lucky to always have lived, or I think of myself as always having been lucky to like live in a big city. But then now it's like I keep seeing news reports of people getting punched and kicked and like assaulted in San Francisco and other parts of the Bay Area. So it's like very scary. And even though I have not experienced any violence to myself, I see these stories and it makes me feel like, could that happen to me? Like I'm walking, I was skating in my neighborhood the other day and I was like, I heard some like loud noise and I was like, for 1 second, I was like, is somebody shooting at me from a car? Like, and then I was suddenly like, whoa, like, I don't know if I'm actually safe right now. Cause especially not wearing shoes, I was on roller skates. So I was like, if something happened to me right now, like I'm a little freaked out. I mean, it, it didn't stop me from going out the next day, but it's just, I never had to think, I've never like thought about race-based being afraid of that kind of violence. And I'm lucky because I know a lot of people have to live with that threat every day. So
yeah,
it just kind of like struck me suddenly that like I feel a little vulnerable.
Yeah.
So I don't know what I would say. I mean, I would say to young people, it's hard to say, I want to be like, don't be afraid. Like, I mean, like personally, I don't know anyone, but I know that the chance is always out there. So I think just, try to be aware of your surroundings and, travel in groups if you can. Like, that's a good way to like be able to stay safe, is like always have people to walk with, or at least just, be vigilant. Don't listen to your headphones when you're walking around if you're, just kind of be aware.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I
wish I didn't have to say that, but yeah, it's a thing.
I also wish that we didn't have to say that. Nahir asked, where is the Pacific Island? And actually, there are a lot of islands in the Pacific Ocean. it's so let's see. So there are a lot of islands in the Pacific Ocean, and in general, we you know, it's sort of hard because when we say Asian American and Pacific Islander, we are referring to such a diverse and large group of people. So, you know, when you see the initials like AAIP, you think like, oh yeah, one group of people, but it's such a big group that includes so many people, including people from all different islands in the Pacific Ocean. And I hope that helps answer your question, Nahir.
Yeah, I'm actually a quarter Filipino as well. So those are islands in the Pacific, even though they're pretty close to the mainland. But yeah, my uncle in the video, his last name is Kikuchi Ngoho, because Ngoho was my grandma's last name.
Oh, cool.
So, and that's Filipino.
So he's your uncle?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's my dad's younger brother.
Yeah, he's really cool. Like I love watching him tell stories. Like I could just like watch him all day.
Yeah, he's a professional. That's what he does for a living. He's like a professional storyteller. And he's actually worked in schools around the Bay, like teaching, like telling stories. Like with his wife, Nancy, they have a storytelling troupe called Ethnotech that's been running out of the Mission in San Francisco for like the last 40 years or something.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, so they perform a lot, and they do a lot of like Asian American folktale things. And like sometimes they've been doing them over Zoom lately. And that's like their profession. So I feel lucky to have storytellers in the family, because I kind of feel like a storyteller. I mean, I'm not like, I don't get up in front of a group like this and like, I mean, I guess I'm kind of doing it right now, but I don't do it professionally. But I do like to make little comics about my story, like whatever happens, like daily stories, daily drawings all the time. So I guess I am a storyteller in a way.
Definitely. Do you mind if I ask you a couple questions from the chat?
Yeah, of course.
Or if you want to take a look. So Shui asks, are the stories of the barbershop just stories you guys retell at like family reunions, or just in family documents that you've had the chance to read, or that you had the choice to read?
I think they've been told from family reunions, but I think, you know, I'm sure that those stories were told when a lot of my grandparents and their siblings were alive. Most of them have passed away at this point. But like, I think that they were being told, and that's how like now they're being told by the next generation. As a little kid, I wasn't interested at all. I was just running around doing my thing at the family reunions. But then my dad, you know, well, there's a book actually called the Kikuchi Diary, which was written by the great uncle of mine who was given up for adoption, Charlie Kikuchi. He's the one who wrote this whole book called the Kikuchi Diary, and it's a real book. So I read that. I haven't read it for a while though, but like that's a document that exists. And then my Aunt Alice also, she was the one who I panned over that document that talked about my great grandfather being like tied to a log and rolled down a hill or whatever. So she also wrote a little memoir, and I think multiple other people in the family have written these documents. So yeah, mostly I know the stories from the documents, and then also from like my cousins who have read the documents and we talk about it together. But yeah, it's not like we were told these from a young age. Like we're kind of just finding out now.
That's so cool. I love that. Yeah. So, and then Megan asked, how did you guys find out so much about your great grandfather? But I feel like you just answered that really.
Yeah. Like, yeah, the next generation, the generation of my grandparents were pretty good at writing their life stories. Like 2 or 3 of them wrote down their life stories and their perception of the history. And all of them were slightly different. So I think like, yeah, there's been different accounts. Actually, one of them even says like, well, there's 2 different stories. And actually that my cousin in the documentary also said that. Remember, she was like, the one that everyone seems to like the best is this story.
Right. Yeah. That's so interesting too, isn't it? Like we think when we're young that there's like one truth, you know, and like there's either, and everything else is wrong, but like memory is a really interesting thing, and so is the way stories change, like the more they're told by other people. So it's kind of interesting to get older and realize like there isn't really a truth in a way. There are just all these different versions of stories that.
Yeah, like even like now, like, I mean, I've been in situations where, you know, something happened and I had this idea that someone was angry and someone else had the idea that they were like just laughing about it or something. Like it's like perception is so interesting how like you'll never know exactly what happened because you can't interview everyone you've ever met.
Exactly. Shui wants to know if you do your comics digitally or by hand, and she wants to know how long it takes and if she can read them.
I do both. I do some of them for a long time. I was doing them by hand and like using a scanner to like edit them, and lately I got an iPad maybe like 6 months ago, so I've been doing that mostly because it's so much quicker and easier and I don't have to scan anything. So
Procreate?
I do, yeah. And I'm still learning it. Like I pretty much just, you know, I use it kind of like I would draw on paper. Like I don't have that many tricks up my sleeve as far as Procreate goes, because I think I like to keep them looking, you know, as like I made them with on paper as possible. Yeah. Although I guess they do look pretty digital. Right now I have a website, which is yokook.com. So you can see my drawings there. I don't have that many comics up there, but I should make a little page for my comics. Yeah, I don't know if y'all are allowed to use social media, but I have Instagram as well.
Yeah, is it okay if I give them your Instagram?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yoko OK a million times, or?
Oh wait, actually, do you mind if I type it in the chat?
Please, that would be
okay. Wait, I forgot to say the dash. My website is yoko-ok.com. Oh yeah, because we're both okay. Do they know that you're an okay too?
No. So you guys, just to tell you a story about mine and Yoko's history. So when I'm in right now, I've got my teacher hat on. When I'm working as a professional painter and a professional artist, I go by the name Alison OK Frost. So I met Yoko at a party, 5-10 years ago or something, and she was playing with a band, and it was all a band of people who had OK in their name, right? Or did everyone in the band go by OK?
It was me and my friend Liam, who is Liam Orlando Kelly. And
okay.
So, yeah, Liam was OK as well.
Yeah, so we started talking about how she was an OK and I was an OK, and we kind of bonded about that.
Yeah. Yay. We're related. I like to say we're related. You see the resemblance? I kind of can. Like we both have like red hair and kind of pinkish glasses happening.
Yeah, and kind of round faces.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yay.
All right. So I wanted to ask you, how big of a role do you feel like this family history that you talk about in your movie has to do with your sense of identity?
I was thinking about that, and I feel like other than being like, wow, that's a really cool story, like I don't know if it makes me identify with the people in the story exactly, but it does make me identify with the people I interviewed. Like I think interviewing them really was like, wow, these people are such good storytellers, and like that just made me feel more connected to them. And yeah, totally. And like the identity thing with I think like, yeah, thinking about my family history, I guess also like, you know, there's a lot of trauma that has been sort of like energetically leaked down through the generations. So I feel like I'm aware of that, but I'm also aware of like the amazing strength it takes for people to immigrate and to survive. Like, you know, my great grandparents and my grandparents and their siblings all were interned in the internment camps during World War II. So they all had everything taken away and had to like be sent to basically a prison for whatever, 2 to 4 years.
Yeah.
So that was really.
And, to my students, have you guys learned in history or anywhere else about the internment camps that were in California and Arizona and the western part of the United States during World War II? You've read about it? No, but you do know about it? Okay. Yeah, so
that's good. That's good that I think a lot more young people know about it now, because when I was a kid, my parents told me about it, but I don't remember if we learned about it in school, it was very short. It was just like one sentence, like no real like thought, you know. I mean, maybe it was because I didn't grow up in a very, like, I didn't know any other Japanese people where I was in New York, like besides my family members really. So maybe that's part of why, like, you know, maybe if there had been like a huge, bigger Japanese American community where I was growing up, there would have been more attention paid to that or something.
Yeah. Well, you know, I grew up in Los Angeles where there's a huge Japanese population, Japanese American population, and we didn't learn about it in school. And I remember when I was a teenager or something, there was a big deal being made about the fact that, like, why doesn't anyone ever talk about this? And I think Los Angeles ended up putting let's see, there's a Japanese American museum, and they ended up putting a big exhibit about the internment camps, which was honestly like where I learned most of the information about those. Just it, I don't know, like my mom had a really good friend, Keiko, who lived in the internment camps as a child, but she was very stoic. And she, you know, so she would say things like, oh, it wasn't that bad, we just thought we were at summer camp or something like that.
Yeah, that's exactly what the family story is in my family. Like my mom is like, oh, we always thought our parents went to summer camp when they talk about camp. And it's just like, no. But I think there is a big culture like that stoicism and like wanting to forget, that a lot of the older, especially like my grandparents' generation, was really into just, yeah, pretending it didn't happen. And like not talking about. So I think that might be a reason that kind of it got forgotten, because like the people who were there wanted to forget, and everyone else felt ashamed that it happened, so they wanted to forget. But then their kids, then like my parents' generation, like people like baby boomers, like realized like, oh, this was actually a really big deal and it's really not cool, so we're gonna talk about it. So now it's like more in the public consciousness because everyone's aware that it happened now, and they don't want to forget, because, you know, the more we forget, the more it's likely to happen again.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I wanted to ask, you know, I'm hoping that some of my students are finding your project inspiring. So I wanted to ask if you have any advice for young people who are interested in learning more about where they come from or their heritage. Oh, I'm sorry. We got one more question, which is, are the camps still open now? No, the camps were just during World War II. And the idea behind the camps was that since we were in war with Japan, when I say we, I mean the United States, since the United States was at war with Japan as part of World War II, there was a fear that the Japanese Americans couldn't be trusted because they might be spies. Even families like Yoko's, which, you know, her great grandfather, as we saw in the video, was in the Navy. He fought for this country. He risked his life for this country, but he was still considered a threat because what if he reported things back to Japan? So what happened was property. So people who owned houses, their houses and all their possessions were taken away, and they were sent to live in these camps. And I believe that they were released from the camps after World War II, and then the camps were dismantled. And you can still go to the land where they were, but you won't be able to see anything. But I do know people who have made sort of a pilgrimage to see that land and to sort of experience that part of it. But yeah, we don't, well, I was about to say we don't have any kind of internment camps in this country now, but then for those of you that watch the news, there are detention centers for people who are caught trying to immigrate into this country looking for a better life, and there are camps or I guess detention centers where they are being held and not.
It's the same thing. They changed the name because they don't want it to be associated with like things that, you know, are now seen as bad from the past. So now they're called detention centers, but they're the same thing. It's a concentration camp, and it's happening now.
So for any of my students who might be inspired to learn more about their family or to do a project around where they come
I
from.
have one thing I want to say also, is that during World War II, also Germans, like we were at war with Germany and Italy as well, but none of those people were interned because they were white people, so they were seen as Americans, whereas Japanese Americans with like, you know, the same story, like their parents came here, were not seen as Americans. So
yeah, no, that's definitely true. Yeah, I mean the most, you know, they made it illegal in some places to speak German.
Okay.
But that's not the same as having your home taken away. And yeah. So would that be considered colorism or racism?
Racism. For sure.
Yeah. I mean, I think that one thing that Yoko is referring to, so Yoko and I are both grandchildren, or I guess great grandchildren of immigrants, but because my features are white, it's really easy for people, as soon as my family members like lost their accent, basically they were considered Americans. And one thing that is a real problem in this country is that a lot of times if you can't assimilate your features, so if you have a look that isn't white, then it's there are a lot of people in this country who sort of feel like you would never belong. I don't know if I expressed that very clearly, but there's, you know, Yoko's family and my family have been in this country for the same amount of time, which should mean that we're equally American. And, you know, we consider each other, I assume, equally American, you know. But there are people in this country who can only see white faces and white features as truly American, which is really sad for a lot of reasons. One of which being that part of what makes America really wonderful is that we're made up of so many different types of people, which means that we have access to all these different histories, like all these different customs, different types of food, different ways of dressing. And that should be celebrated instead of used as a way to separate ourselves from each other, if you ask me.
I agree. Thank you for saying all that. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So so do you have any advice to these awesome young people if they wanted to learn more about where they're from or about their own family histories?
I just want to first acknowledge that I know that it's not always possible. I know that like a lot of families either want to forget, they have really painful pasts, you know, lots of people, you know, like were taken to this country against their will. Like there's a lot of family history that like doesn't want to, you know, people don't want to talk about it. They just want to focus on the future. And I totally respect that. Also, lots of people don't know their birth parents because they're adopted. So also, you know, there's obstacles in the way of finding out about your family history if you're adopted, which is sad, but you know, so I just want to acknowledge that. But if you are lucky like me and you have relatives who are alive, who are willing to talk about where your family's from, I think it's super valuable to interview them and like make videos of them talking about it, or record them, or write down what they say, because, you know, one day they might be too old, or they might want, you know, like I tried to interview my grandmother actually, like when she was already, you know, kind of too old. So I think it's really valuable, especially when you're young and people, you have parents or grandparents, or some people might even have great grandparents alive now. I think it's really important to just ask them, like, you know, tell me about your childhood, or how did your family survive the last 100 years? So yeah. I think it's good if you can get it, because a lot of times when you're young, you're like, oh, my parents and everyone will be alive forever and they'll always know these stories. But at some point, it's kind of your job to, if you want to keep the story alive, to like, you know, learn and write it down for yourself so you have it to tell your kids if you have kids one day.
Great, thank you. All right, so I wanted to open it up to students. I feel like we got into some really good stuff here. This has been a great conversation. But to my students, do you have other questions you would like to ask Yoko? Just gonna give them a minute to type, or you can unmute yourself and ask her or ask me, or any stories that you would like to share with Yoko.
Oh yeah, I'd love to hear if anyone wants to tell a story. And it's okay if not also. I don't mind being, oh, there's a question. How did I come up with the idea to make the documentary? I think I kind of went over that, but yeah, I was talking to my family about our history, and then I was in a documentary, or I was in a video editing class where our assignment was to make a documentary. So a lot of times school is what kind of motivates me to do things. Like I wouldn't probably have made it on my own. Like I wouldn't have thought like, oh, I want to make this documentary. Or I would have thought it to myself like, oh, I want to do that someday. But because I had this class pushing me, I was like, oh, I should really like, you know, since I have this assignment to do, I should make it about something that's important to me, not just like, you know, whatever thing that I don't care about. So
yeah, and Yoko has a really interesting to me thing that she does where she's a lifelong learner. So Yoko is always taking courses and in continuing her education, which I think is such a cool thing, because yeah, there's so much to learn in this world, and also you stay younger, I believe, if the more you continue.
Yeah, for sure. There was a time period between, you know, I went to college for art and I graduated, and then for maybe about 10 years I didn't take any classes, and then I started and I was like, why did I wait so long to start taking classes? Like I feel, you know, as a kid maybe you're like, I don't know if I like school, but then when you get older, I feel like, or when I got older, I felt like I appreciated the opportunity to go to school again, and now I enjoy it. And I like hanging out with my teachers, and like, you know, I don't know, just like going, learning things, learning how to make things like that I didn't know how to make before. That's the best part.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I love teaching adults because there is that excitement.
Mm-hmm.
Like I love being around young people, but for these guys, it's a little bit of a drag. Like, oh, here's Miss Frost again giving us another assignment. Whereas the adults are like, yes, let me have your knowledge.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Totally. I actually do a drawing class once a week with us. I think he's in 7th grade, a 7th grader and a 9th grader, and it's a little bit like that. It's like they're like, I don't know if I want to draw this, and I'm like, come on, guys, let's do it. But yeah, I also really enjoy working with kids. Like I feel like there's something about it that you know, there's like things that are good about working with adults, and there are things that are like really great about working with kids that can't be, you know, I mean, you know what I mean. Definitely.
Yeah. All right, guys, any other questions for Yoko?
I'll answer anything. Well, almost anything. And it's okay if not to. Oh, do I watch anime? I see the question. I have watched anime. My sister, who is a bit younger than me, is really into anime, and so are all my roommates. I live with some people who are younger than me as well, and they watch it. But I don't have a favorite, and I've only seen like little standalone episodes of anime. But I like Miyazaki movies, and I like a lot of Japanese animation. Just I haven't super got into like watching episode after episode of any one show. Oh, I see another question. How did I dye my hair? I had Miss Frost to help me the first time because I have so much hair that it took like 2 hours or something to do it all. And then yesterday I had all black growing in, you know, so I put bleach on the roots, and then that turned really light compared to the rest of my hair because it gets brighter towards the roots because of the heat of your head. So then I put dye over it, which is what this red is. And yeah, that's how I did it. It's not perfect, but I'm an artist, so I can have weird hair.
Yeah, it's definitely, pretty early on in the pandemic, Yoko and I we spent a day on my porch dyeing each other's hair with masks on, you know, and outdoors. It must have looked pretty funny to people who live on my street or whatever, like having our little hair salon.
The hair salon, everyone was doing it at the time. Nothing looked weird. They're like, oh yeah, okay, like that looks normal. Everything. Right. You wouldn't. I wasn't surprised or if by seeing stuff like that. But yeah. Oh, well, it's been so nice to be here. Thank you for having me. I feel privileged to be talking to you all, and it's just, yeah, a really good start to my day. I feel like this was probably the most comfortable I ever was in an interview, maybe just because it's early, but also I just feel comfortable. So, and I heard that y'all were excited about interviewing me, so I was like, cool, I get to do this thing. That was fun.
Thank you so much. And can everyone please just either unmute yourself or type in the chat to let so that we can let Yoko know how much we appreciate her coming and talking to us today.
Thank you all. So good to be here. And y'all are so nice.
Yeah, this is a really, really sweet bunch. I'm really glad you could come.
Hey, these guys. Yeah, I want to see all your drawings and stuff. If it's okay with any of you, you should tell Ms. Frost that I could see if you want me to show me your drawings, because
these guys, they just finished a project where they did a self-portrait in profile, you know?
Oh yeah.
But inside they filled it with all of their interests, all their concerns, the things they worry about, the things they love.
Oh, that's such a good assignment.
Yeah.
You and I need to talk. I need some more assignments for my kids, because I don't know. Some days I'm just like, I mean, I can usually come up with something, but that's a really good one. I want to do that one. Maybe I'll go do it today. That sounds cool. All right. Well, have a good rest of your class. What time do you go till?
Till 10:30. So we're okay. in the home stretch here. All right. Thank you so much, Yoko. I will talk to you really soon.
Yay. All right.